Hi everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen and I'm going to show you today how to use this plastic stacking system to stack a tiered cake. And if you see me using any supplies that you could use, check the link in the description below. Okay, now this is just one of many types of stacking systems. This is one that I use in particular when I really want to make sure my cake is good and solid and it has to travel. And to start, I'm going to start with my cake plate. Now you saw I matched it up to my cake there, my one little tier. I'm using the cardboard piece of the cake plate there, and I'm pressing it down on top of the plastic cake plate itself. So the plastic part has a little spike in the center that made a hole right there. So I just kind of pointed at it. That hole, you got to push it down hard and you'll feel it pop. You'll feel it give. Once you have that hole, now you have like a central point that will lock into place when you're ready to put it all together. Now when you flip your plastic piece over, you're going to see it's got these rings around the sides. This is to make it look like Grecian columns. Like if you want to stack a cake and have the pillars showing, you would save those rings, you would have them on the top, save the extra ones if you use them, and then you could have them on the bottom. Then they'll look like actual, pillars with a fancy top and bottom to them rather than just straight up and down. Since my cake is going to be covering all of the actual legs, I don't care about these pieces, so I'm using my knife, and I'm just a butter knife, and I slip it underneath and just wiggle here and there, and they come right off. I stick them in my storage bag for later if I ever need them, which honestly I've only ever used them once, so I have a lot of those extra pieces. Now, the legs themselves, they are long as you can see, and the one end is kind of jointed. I don't really know exactly what the company is thinking, but I think the idea is like, oh, you just snap really hard and it'll break off at whatever intersection that your cake's going to be. These things are thick and strong and solid as heck. They don't snap off for nothing. So what I'm going to do, I've got my cake right there. I'm just using the cardboard cake plate to mark off the top of the cake. I put a mark with this is an erasable marker, so I just wipe it off with a little water later. And I just mark the top of my cake. I'm giving it a little bit extra because I figured once I start adding the icing to it, it's going to have a little bit of extra height to it. I shouldn't have done that. I know better. I doubted myself because I kind of forgot too that I'm not going to fondant this cake. And if you were going to fondant it, then of course you'd have to accommodate the extra height. So I mark off all my pieces. And then I went in the garage and I used my husband's bandsaw to cut them. You could use any saw really that you want or figure something else out, I don't know. Now to place the plastic plate on top of the lower part of the cake, I'm going to use my knife blade and I just kind of mark it with my finger and go around the side of the cake to try to get the center as best I can. If I were to use a tape measure to mark the center, it would get covered by the plate so I'd never see it. So I'm doing it this way. I pressed down and I made indentations in the icing there so I can see where the 4 circles are, where the legs will go. If you're using fondant on your cake, you're going to do the exact same thing. Nothing changes here. I'm using my knife now to cut through the layer of icing on top, as well as a little bit into the cake itself. And my cake is cold because I had it in the fridge a long time. It's really firm. And this part doesn't matter so much because it's icing, but if you do fondant your cake, you're going to want to do this because if you stick it in and push through the fondant, you might end up pulling the fondant or tearing it or stretching it, so it's just better to not. Alright, now I assembled my cake tier, or my stacking system, excuse me, by putting the legs in. You'll feel them slide right into place. They don't necessarily lock, but they're snug. They're not going to go anywhere. Make sure you press them in nice and tight. Line up your holes with the legs. And then start pushing. Now again, this cake was really cold, so it was kind of like pressing through hard clay. And what you don't see at one point is I think I got my elbow in there to try to press it in. It was really firm. But just keep pressing straight and steady down until you can't go any further. Now again, this is where it should be lined up flush with the top of the cake, but I accommodated for fondant that doesn't exist. So I have a little gap. Actually doesn't matter. Now to put them together, I find the hole in my cake plate, my cardboard cake plate from before, and I try to line it up with the pinpoint prick thing sticking up on the plate itself. I had some icing that you saw just to anchor it to the cake plate. Once I have it locked in, you'll actually feel it if you wiggle it around because my top tier was also very chilled and very solid from being in the fridge, so I could manhandle it kind of rough. Once you feel it, you'll really feel it. You'll know when you got it. Now to fill in the gap, I just spread some extra icing. I squish some underneath the cake plate. I smoothed up my sides there, blend it all together, stick it back in the fridge so it's all nice and cold and set, and you're done. You got a super solid, strong, going nowhere cake. Now, I hope you found my little video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it really does help me out. Check out my many other videos. I got a ton out there, as well as other beginner videos. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.